but we need to do more. Very recently, we just passed tax credits for small businesses to hire new employees on the theory that we have an economy that's beginning to grow, and so what is it that needs to put people over the hump to make that next hire? We are in the process of working on a new jobs bill in addition to what we did with the stimulus package, and that will be principally focused on a lot of municipal employees and hires, because states have taken quite a hit. Maryland has taken quite a hit, and so we want to make sure that we're not laying off teachers and firefighters and all of our first responders. And I'm fascinated by looking at where our economy is now versus even when I came into the Congress in June 2008. When I started, I was told that it would be a lazy kind of summer and fall, not a lot going on, take your time, get your office together, all that stuff. And then the financial sector was hit. And I remember participating on a conference call in about September or so last year before last. And in that call, it was being described that there was potential that on the following Monday, people wouldn't be able to go to their ATMs and withdraw their own cash. And so we were in a deep, deep crisis. And as a result, many of us had to hold our noses and vote for that TARP legislation, Troubled Assets Relief Program. If they actually really wanted to do something, we would have named it something different. But we voted for that. And I think today, looking back on that, even holding a nose, it was totally the right thing to do, because we really were on the verge of absolute collapse. And when you see, the how we're beginning to look at financial regulation right now, and listening to some of the testimony as I have, some of the practices that were going on in that sector just should never have taken place, not under existing law and certainly not under any additional regulations that we're going to provide in the non-banking sector. And then, couple that with, or not with a loss of homes. We can see that right here in Prince George's County, where still the housing foreclosure crisis continues to consume us. And we didn't know the ripple effect of our own domestic housing market on the global economy. Part of the reason we didn't know that is because we had a whole bunch of products being traded and broken up around the globe, and all of us thought we just had our one little mortgage. And it turns out that that wasn't true at all, that it was sliced and diced into pieces and sold off into packages, and we didn't know any of that because that part of the industry really has not been regulated in the way that it needs to, and had the kind of oversight that it needs. And then in January 2009, when the president was sworn into office, we lost 740,000 jobs that month. Had been on a continuing slide of losing hundreds of thousands of jobs a month. We saw the latest economic numbers just these last couple of weeks, and they do look significantly better. This March looks, March looked so much better than the March previously. And but it's going to be a slow climb back. And so we know that government continues to have, to play a role in that. The federal government really must. And when we injected the stimulus package, I was one of those actually who happened to believe and argued at the time with a lot of economists that we should have done about a $1.3 trillion stimulus package, and instead we had to come under some number that somebody made up, and we did a $783 billion stimulus package. It turns out that we probably did need to put, another $5 billion into that 500, whatever that number is, $500 billion into the economy, because we are doing that now with these smaller packages around job creation at the municipal level. We're going to look at additional funding for our transportation infrastructure, water and sewer and transportation infrastructure and energy sector, which is really important because those are all, whatever industry that you're in, when you're creating jobs in those sectors, one, it's about building your infrastructure so that you're competitive for the future, but it's also all of those downstream jobs that are created when you invest in transportation and infrastructure. And there is no dearth to the amount of transportation and infrastructure projects there are out there to invest in, and that's in the state of Maryland and across the country. So it's been quite a busy time. What I'd like to do is because I've talked quite enough to be able to hear from you and take questions, and let's just have a conversation.
Now that the federal legislation is passed, what do you see in terms of implementation that has to be done at the local level? I'm sure there's going to be some things that Governor O'Malley and the legislature is going to have to do to make the whole program work.
Well, at the most local level, one of the things that I'm really concerned about, and actually we'll be convening a couple of meetings with nonprofit providers who potentially could aggregate to establish community health centers here in our county, federally qualified community health centers in our county, is really important to me. One, because I think it's a really important delivery mechanism for communities, but also because even though we have some health centers here that are supported with federal dollars, we have no federally qualified health centers here, and which is staggering when you look at them around the country and where there are places of deepest needs in some of our most vulnerable communities. And so we potentially, the 4th district, not the county, but through Prince George's and Montgomery, we potentially could qualify for an additional 8 federally qualified community health centers. But we have to position some of our nonprofit, and other providers in a way that they have the capacity to compete for that money. I'd hate to see the resources for those centers go someplace else because we're not positioned to compete. I think that the governor's office and the Department of Health can provide some really important leadership on that, and it's actually, when I came into office, that was one of the biggest surprises, because I've known community health centers for a very long time in a lot of ways in different parts of the country, and I was actually really surprised to find that there are none that qualify here. There are some supported centers, however, so that will be really important. There are important changes in Medicaid, and so I think the state is going to have to take a look at the ways in which our Medicaid structure really supports what we're doing on the federal level. What's really good is there's more support, especially in the early years for states, because so many more people will be added onto the Medicaid rolls because of the change in the poverty thresholds. And so that will be really important. Our insurance commissioner is going to have to get very robust. And I say that because I got a provision in the bill that went almost unnoticed by the insurance industry by intent because to deal with increased costs. What I saw last fall when we passed our credit card bill is that immediately between the time of implementation and the date of passage, the industry started changing all kinds of things that they did with consumers. They increased interest rates. They lowered a lot of people's, sort of creditability and all kinds of things. And I saw that, and something clicked for me. And I said, wow, why wouldn't the health insurance industry do the same thing between the time of implementation